Stu, thank you so much for coming on the show. For people who might not know you, who are you?
My name is Stu Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. I've got a small podcast, Energy Newsbeat, and we have a lot of fun. We've been doing it about 4 years. I got to interview Liz Truss just recently and loved getting to meet her from the UK. I get to meet with lots of great energy leaders.
How'd you end up in the energy sector?
Well, that was kind of a weird start. I actually started working for Intel a million years ago. Noah and I are good friends. And so when I started working at Intel, I worked and started becoming a nerd. And then went and got work for my father-in-law, actually in Oklahoma, for schools, and we built server rooms and we built a lot of education equipment, networking, and all that. And I sold the Intel servers and Intel gear and all that kind of good stuff. And I thought I could sell that company in a matter of a year, but it took me 6 years. And at the end of the 6 years, my father in law told me, said, I would have never sold it without you. So it was a hard 6 years. That being said, then I went and got into the oil industry and was working with a group in Oklahoma City doing intelligent well designs where we would go in and automate well pads. We did like 1,800 pads for Devon, another 2,400 for BHP, and had a lot of fun getting SCADA data to their data centers. And I became tower certified and got in there and really just started getting in the oil and gas. Then I went to work for Intercom, and Intercom was working with investor relations and working with CEOs of. So I went from the oil automation side of it to the investor side of it. And so it gave me a good background of not being on the pad, but being in the boardroom. And then we had a Oil and Gas 360 was a website that I was actually working with them on and working and managing it. And I said, we've got to change 360 to energy because oil and gas is only part of the story. You're going to have wind turbines, you're going to have solar panels, you're going to have everything, and you're going to need to talk about energy. And they didn't want to do that. So I went ahead and started Energy Newsbeat. And that's how I got started as Energy Newsbeat in the podcast.
What's Sandstone Group?
Sandstone Group, we actually take oil and gas leases and we analyze them, whether or not they're a good investment, whether or not the adjacent wells are decent. We take a look at all the well data logs and everything else. And we would work with folks to try to determine whether or not it was a good investment or not, whether or not to buy that lease, to invest in it. And so it's kind of nice having that kind of team working there.
Let's talk a little bit about the current situation over in the States. What is, I mean, ultimately we only see with, the usual BBC, etc., etc. But what is the current energy situation over in the States? For those who might not know, one state in particular, California. Do you want to open up a little bit on what's going on there?
Oh, you bet. Well, let's start with the Strait of Hormuz right now. And the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. 20% of the world's energy goes through, oil, and then another, 15% or 17% of the LNG to 20% of the LNG goes through there through Qatar. And you've got a very severe issue with the Iranians not knowing who in control because the Iranian leadership wants to open it up, and then the IRGC says, nope, nobody's going through. So it's kind of like, do you ever see Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
Okay. The Strait of Hormuz is open. No, it's closed. No, it's open. No, it's closed. Well, the United States is fairly energy independent except for the West Coast. The West Coast imports 2% of the oil that comes through the Strait of Hormuz goes to California. 80% of the oil coming into California either comes from Iraq, Ecuador, which is Chinese companies, and they also have to import 40 to 60% of their jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline, depending on the mix, depending on the time of the year. And Joe, they are maxed out on their import pipelines and tankers that they can bring in. They don't have any more capacity. They're down to 7 refineries. They had 38 at one time. They're down to 7 refineries. 6 have stated that they're closing. That's because the overreach of Gavin Newsom and the entire ideology that they follow, and they love Ed Miliband. By the way, I think that Gavin Newsom hugged Ed Miliband last time he saw him. I think I saw that. They pat each other on the back, and they love each other. So besides hanging out as buddies, the unfortunately California also influences about 17 other states. And Joe, in the United States, 30 the blue states run by Democrats are 38% higher than the red states. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And you take a look at a cost of a gallon of gasoline in California is about $1.70, $1.70. I don't know what that is in pounds, but I would think it's $1.30. You multiply it by 1.35.
$1.35 or that, yeah.
And so when you take $1 a gallon, let's say $2 a gallon. Let's go $2 a gallon. Today it's at $6. So at $6, you got $4 worth of taxes on refinery tax. We don't like your hair tax. You must shave your back tax. All these goofy little taxes that they've got on there is $4 a gallon. It's not.
Why are they doing it though? What? Because ultimately California could still produce oil. Let's be totally honest. I mean, it is
Here's
still,
where it gets even uglier. All right, buckle up, Joe, if you're ready for this rabbit hole. Okay.
Let's go, Stu.
In California, they have oil seepage, and it just bubbles up onto the shore. That's how easy. This is worse than in Saudi Arabia. Their cost to get oil is about $3 a barrel because it bubbles up right out of the ground. I mean, it's right there. Same thing in California. California has as big a reserves as Texas does. Here's where they got in 2024. They went down. Gavin Newsom has a war on oil and gas in California. They got down to, I believe, 40 or 50 well permits. Kern County, California, was one of the leading oil producing states in the United States. And they shut it down in the last 10 years. We used to import oil from Alaska. My granddad was one of the chief geologists who discovered the North Slope in Alaska. And I love my time going up to Alaska. But when you sit back and say, we don't even import from our own Alaska, it just is mind-boggling to me that we are that way. They got rid of, I believe, 3 nuclear reactors that were perfectly good reactors. Oh, who does that sound like? Germany. Okay, what else did Germany do? Germany also blew up their coal plants.
Industry, yeah.
And they are about to flood their coal ignite mine, making it impossible to use ever again. What's the difference between the UK and the EU and China and Japan? China and Japan and Asia are firing up their mothballed coal plants. So the green left things going on by Gavin Newsom, California is the leading state, or the biggest economy in the United States is California. However, all the businesses leaving California because of the taxes and the overreach and the overbearing governance, and people are leaving. That's the freedom of the United States. You can leave.
Mm.
Now they're going to be charging people when you leave, kind of like Canada. When Canada, they put this in place. Try this on, Joe. Canada is now charging you $500,000 when you leave Canada permanently. Gavin Newsom heard that and he's like, oh, we're going to try that too. My in-laws just sold their second home in California, and then California wanted to ding them with additional taxes because they're leaving the state. And it's just unbelievable what that overreach is doing.
What's the kind of what is the American view on what's going on in? I mean, obviously you can't speak for every American, but what's kind of the American view, well, from your perspective, I guess, of what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz?
I think that we are going to see actual change in the entire global oil market. And I think we saw that yesterday or day before yesterday when the UAE announced they're leaving OPEC. And if you want me to go down how I really think the oil market is going to shake out, it started with George W. Bush in the Iraq War. And that is, we still have control over the Iraq oil money. That goes through the U.S. Treasury accounts, and the Fed set it up. The Federal Reserve, which is a private organization, not even a government agency. So when we invaded and took Maduro, there's a real rabbit hole there, and that is we put Venezuela controls on it. Those Venezuela controls go through the Bank of Qatar. We are now giving the money back to Venezuela. Venezuela's number one export country was China.
China.
Iran's number one export is China. Who is actually not going to be happy with this new arrangement? Because I believe we are going to put Venezuela style controls, not Iraq style controls, because the Fed actually does not answer to the United States government. It's its own agency or own company. It's a corporation. It's not even that. So you're going to see Venezuela style controls in order to end the war. And President Trump has got the blockade moved away, and he's now letting tankers go through, and he's now capturing tankers through the Strait of Malacca, going through that into Indonesia, and he's capturing them in over in near India and everything else. And he's going to let them come through. He's going to capture them. Here's where it's going to get really weird. The UAE leaving OPEC. If you're OPEC and you're a consortium and you're looking at Venezuela, now controlled by the United States, that's one of your OPEC members. Excuse me. You have OPEC number 2, which is the UAE can produce. The 3.5 million is what they've been producing, I believe. They can go to 5 immediately, and they need the money. They've got their pipeline going right on through. They're going to be increasing that pipeline. Taking a look at Saudi Arabia, that built 25 years ago, somewhere around in there, they built the east to west pipeline to the Red Sea over at Yanbu, I believe. Yeah. They were pumping 3.5 million barrels per day. They got it up to 5, spiking to 7 by taking a different pipeline and repurposing it and getting it up there. They're back up into that range. They're bypassing the Strait of Hormuz there. So what we're seeing right now is a gigantic shift in money flowing around the world. And you have to sit back and ask, who was making money before? Who's going to be making money in the future? And I see that the oil money is changing. What the biggest question I see also for your listeners is the price of paper money versus physical delivery. Right now, paper money, we are at 117, somewhere around in there. WTI is around $100. Brent, somewhere in there. I have to look at that. Delivered is, depending on where you are, is $140 to $200.
Yeah.
That is demand destruction waiting to happen. But what we're going to see is, as we've talked about pre-show, China was buying at $20 to $30 per barrel from Venezuela. They would then turn around and sell products to Venezuela at an inflated rate. So they're making money by taking that low cost oil. They're then taking and then bumping that in. Why was Iran tied to Venezuela? It's because the chemical nature of Venezuelan oil is really benefited by Iranian oil. So Iranian oil would ship over to Venezuela to mix with it, because you can't really use Venezuelan oil without other mixing it.
Yeah.
And it was perfect to mix with it, and then poof, you're off and running.
What's the view on renewables over your side of the pond at the moment?
Mine or President Trump's? President Trump just canceled a bunch of offshore wind farms. We're canceling subsidies around wind and energy. And I think it's great, because I've got a major push right now, Joe, and I'm trying to get our great Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, next year. I'm setting up time to try to work on redefining levelized cost of energy, not levelized cost of electricity. Joe, for your listeners out there, the world has spent $10 trillion on wind, solar, and hydrogen. $10 trillion. What's it gotten us? It's gotten us 3% in energy. 80% of the world's energy is still oil and gas.
Yeah.
So the treadmill that wind and solar is putting the leadership that is putting wind and solar on a treadmill, they say they last 30 years. I have not seen them last 30 years. Maybe some of them do, not the ones I've seen. In fact, I can drive by and I can look at all the ones all in Texas. They look pretty shitty. Sorry about just swearing there. Sorry about that.
You're all right. It's fine.
I apologize, but they're all dilapidated, and they look about as old as I do, and they've only been there for 3 years. So at 8 years in the United States, every single wind farm has had to increase their prices. At 8 years, they're fiscally incapable of sustaining themselves from day one. At 3 years, they've been using nameplate upgrades and maintenance and using subsidies to do that. At 8 years, wind farms have to have additional income come in, period. And that is where that number comes in that our president has thrown out. They don't last 8 years.
Is there any private energy companies that actually build wind farms over there?
Oh yeah, they're all going broke.
Without any subsidies on them.
Nope. Warren Buffett in 2014, Joe, said there's absolutely zero reason to invest in a wind farm without tax incentives and tax subsidies. There's absolutely zero reason. Think about how much it takes to build a wind turbine. It takes killing the rainforest in Brazil. So if you're an ecological person, you're ruining the rainforest, one of the greatest places on the planet. The balsa trees are the number one source for the blades. You've got coal, you've got steel, you've got all the rare earth minerals that China controls 98% of the processing in the world. You've got all these things, and I've said this on my podcast all the time. Energy security starts at home. Energy dominance is demonstrated through your exports. And right now, the United States has tankers lined up like guppies, filling up at the Gulf of America, and we are energy dominant in that part of the United States. In the western part of the United States, we are not energy dominant. We are energy dependent in importing. We have about 3 weeks, and there are no more tankers coming in from Asia. I just talked to them this morning.
Why?
Asia has cut off all tankers because they're taking care of their own because they don't have any oil coming from the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, God. So why doesn't the West just buy from the East?
Why doesn't what?
Why doesn't the Western states just start buying from the Eastern states? You know,
We have this stupid thing called the Jones Act. The Jones Act is a 1920 archaic thing that supports probably 200 people. There's a lobbyist group that owns several politicians. I've reached out to them to get them on my podcast. But if we can waive it, and President Trump did waive the Jones Act, and then you still got to put it on a tanker. And the United States, we build we deindustrialized. We did exactly what the UK and the EU are doing. We deindustrialized. We don't make any ships. We don't make any tankers. And in order to be used in the United States between states, it has to be a Jones Act certified tanker, which means it has to be made in the United States and manned by a United States crew. Here's where there is a thing. We can seize tankers and impound them and turn them into United States property, and there is legal precedent. I'm not advocating for that. I think that that's wrong. I want us to buy tankers until we get our shipyard built again. Currently, I believe we only have 4 shipyards. And of those 4 shipyards, our Navy's using most of them.
Offshore work can take its toll, both physically and mentally. This episode is sponsored by Elite 360X. They have created the Vital 30 program. This is a structured program designed specifically for offshore workers. I can vouch for it as I have used it myself, and I found it really ideal over the last few months while being offshore, while training, while eating. It tracks your fitness, your nutrition, your habits and your recovery, and it's all built around your normal offshore life. Please check out Elite 360 in the episode description. And if you're enjoying, liking, following the show, thank you so much for your support. If you're not, then get subscribing and following. Let's get back to it. But why not pipelines then across states?
Well, you got a mountain range between, and we have a new one coming in. The Phillips 66 and another company just is putting in a pipeline to fill in to go back east. But you have Gavin Newsom canceling it all these years. You have a climate zealot shutting it down.
What happens in 3 weeks? That's what I wonder. What happens to California, which is, it's not exactly a small state by any means. I mean, it's your biggest state in regards to GDP and everything else. What happens then?
Well, if you get to $10 gasoline, you're going to start losing farmers. You're going to start losing agriculture. You're going to start losing deliveries. You're going to start not having food in your grocery stores. You're going to start having social unrest. Dogs and cats out of the Ghostbusters movie, dogs and cats are going to be living with each other. It's going to be hideous. It's going to be absolutely a disaster.
Do you see that happening though? Do you reckon? Do you see it happening?
President Trump has 8 executive orders that Professor Mache from USC has helped write. I've interviewed him on this, and President Trump does have the executive orders. He has the steps that he needs. And I believe that if President Trump can arrange for tankers now, because you can't just call up a tanker and go, hey, I need a tanker. I mean, I got to do my best soprano Italian mob boss going, give me a tanker. I need a tanker. Now for you, special deal. I give you a tanker, and that's the only way you're going to get one. Is you're going to have to make sure you get them now. You're going to have to make sure that we give them precedent. But what's happening to the EU right now? They're having the same problem. The world is short jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline.
Yeah.
The world is down in refineries right now about 5% in production capability because you've got Ukraine lobbing drones all over the place. They've lobbed drones into Russian refineries in Poland and other areas around the EU. You have refineries go down for maintenance, and the refineries in the United States are running nonstop, and it's not good for refineries. They need to be shut down and maintained.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, really, Stu, isn't it?
Do what now?
It's all a bit of a mess.
And we're not there. We're not even halfway through the mess yet.
No. No, where do you see it all going?
I see great things happening.
Well, that's good then. At least there's a bit of positive out of all this then.
I see the world is changing, and the world is going to bifurcate into 2 groups. It's going to bifurcate into free trade groups that are going to take all the energy above coal, natural gas, oil, wind, and solar where applicable. I believe they have their place. I don't want to just sit here and say that they don't have their place. They do. In a free market, let them in places where their grid doesn't, put them in. If you can't get oil there, LNG is going to have its place. And LNG to energy beats coal. Pick the least way to deliver, the least impactful way to deliver electricity on the environment that you possibly can. Let's eliminate energy poverty. But I see great things happening, and you're going to see a new trading bloc happen around the world. I believe the new trading bloc is going to be Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the United States, India, Japan, and Russia, and other countries are going to be in that new trading bloc. And it's going to be around energy security. And it's going to be back to energy security starts at home. And when you take a look at energy security, that is how the next market group is going to be defined. The other group is going to be led by Canada, the UK, and the EU, and they are going to be continuing to deindustrialize and fall into financial ruin.
Yeah, that's a good. Well, that's not great for us, is it?
You asked. I'm sorry. I didn't. It's going to be a very tough road, but it's going to be a very insightful road because I believe people are going to be waking up. And when they do wake up and we realize that we don't have to go and believe in the climatologists' lies that they have been lying to us. Let's provide the lowest cost kilowatt per hour to everyone on the planet with the least impact and talk about real science, not make believe Muppet science like a Wallace and Gromit character I'm sorry. I believe Ed Miliband is related to Wallace and Gromit. I believe that man is a Wallace and Gromit character. I love Wallace and Gromit. I think it's one of the greatest shows ever made on the planet. But I believe I've seen Ed Miliband as a sheep in Wallace and Gromit. And that man has the same brain power as a sheep guest starring on Wallace and Gromit. I'm sorry, I just went off on him.
No, that's fine. You're not the only one who's kind of gone off on him, and you'll not be the last. I can guarantee you that now.
I don't think you've ever had a guest on your podcast just accuse Ed Miliband being a Wallace and Gromit character.
No, I think everyone in fairness, I think when it comes to speaking about Ed Miliband on this podcast, I think everyone tries to resist the kind of discussion on that point.
Please cut this out if it will get you banned.
I don't think we're at that stage yet. Do you think now more than ever, with regards to what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, that energy security is actually starting to become more apparent to people? Do you think people, because of this episode, have started to probably wake up and realize just how important it is to have energy security?
I think so. And I'm going to take it one step further. I sold my Ford 250 a couple of years ago. I've got a lot of trailers, and I'm going to get a Ford. I was going to get a Ford 350, but now I'm looking at a Ford 350 of about 10 years ago and rebuilding it in my shop because I do not want to have any of the controls. Ford has a new thing where they will actually, when you get in the car, it's a patent that just got filed, that they will send your picture every time you get in the car to the police department. And if you have a warrant, they will notify the police that you're in your car. That is now a patent with Ford. I will not have a new Ford car. I think energy security is tied to the surveillance state. And I think you have a group in the UK that is going around that keep cutting down the cameras, and I think those guys are a hoot. They absolutely are. I can't. There's a name for them, and I think that they call themselves, but they go around cutting down the cameras, and I think that is tied to energy security. Monitoring and energy security go hand in hand, and I am firmly believing that the leadership of the world needs to understand that there's more people than leaders. Regimes change when energy gets too high.
What's your perception of what's going on in the UK at the moment? Because I know you're very clued up with what's going on, around the world and whatnot, Stu. But I know you've done quite a bit of your in-depth research into what's going on here. But what's your kind of perception of UK and the energy security situation here?
It's abysmal. As a leader of the family, I highly recommend everybody be ready to defend your home. Every man's castle is your home, and you need to defend it. Be prepared for outages. You need to have backups. See, that's where solar panels do help, and you can then have a plan. Have a plan. Have a communication. In my homes, I have backup generators. I have a microgrid between my little compound. I have twin propane generators. I have solar. I even have wind. I try to learn what I'm talking about, and it's expensive. And for me to put in all my backup energy and everything else, I learned how expensive it really is. So be prepared to defend your home and take leadership, and not only be a leader for your friend and family, stock up on food. Be ready for any natural disaster.
Fair enough. Let's talk about a bit. Let's talk about your podcast, actually, Energy Newsbeat. I'm gonna move on. How did you? Well, obviously you've explained why you started it, but did you see an energy gap in terms of the discussion at the time when you started it?
We really, it took off because I have an all of the above approach. It's kind of like energy. You got to have an all of the above approach. We have everything go to energynewsbeat.co or energynewsbeat.com, but we also go to Apple, Spotify. We go to YouTube. We started out, Joe, going live on Rumble 5 years ago, and we were getting 25,000 people live at a time. It was kind of new back then for podcasts to be live, and then an episode, and then it kind of got weird, and then Rumble sold, and then so YouTube is really fickle. I can go live on YouTube, and then I go live on X, go live on LinkedIn, and as I'm live on all these platforms, I look at the back end because I normally have 9 screens. I have 9 screens in my office, and I bring up the monitoring for each one of them, and I'll look at it and it say, here's my live feed, and it shows 100 people. YouTube will show in the back end of YouTube that there's 1,000 people on it. And over here, it's so it doesn't matter what platform you have, they're going to shut you down and not give you the right answers. They're only going to feed you the numbers they want you to know. The reason I think my podcast has gotten so big is because I've figured out a way in order to get around the system and tie it all into a website of my own that I control the firewalls, and then I can then fan it out to all the other social media.
Have you had much pushback in what you share and what you kind of put out there?
Yes.
Have you? In what way?
They try to silence me.
Uh-huh. Who's they?
Big tech and the government.
On what particular discussions, as if you're allowed to speak about it, obviously, because the last thing I want is to be silenced again or anything like that, but what particular topics do you find that they come after you most?
The one that they got me on particular was I described on how the United States was going to put Venezuela-style controls on Carg Island. They didn't like me talking about it.
Oh, wow. What, you got shut down?
Oh, yeah. Until the stories were removed.
And then you got back, and then that was it, good to go again?
5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So censorship is alive and well.
Yeah. Energy transition, what's your views on that, Stu?
We are not in an energy transition. We're in an energy addition.
Yeah. Okay, similar to me then. That's an easy one.
Again, this is not a bashing of wind and solar and storage. If we redefine the levelized cost of energy to include wind and solar pay for their grid resiliency, they should incorporate storage into a wind and solar farm.
What do you think the issue is around the industry? Do you think it does a bad explanation of what it's actually doing, the industries itself?
I think everybody needs to check their emotions at the door. Let's talk facts. I mean, that's the whole thing. When I try to go in and I visit with a wind person or a solar person, I finally have gotten to the place where I tell everybody, you have to pay to come on my podcast.
Oh, really?
I charge to come on my podcast now. Now, if I invite you, there's no charge. But if you ask to come on my podcast, I charge. And that weeds it out.
So, have you had people from certain sectors that have asked to come on, and then you've obviously said to them, right, this is what you're going to pay to come on? And then what they'll just say, no, you're all right, kind of thing.
Yeah, they're like, we don't need it. And I'm like, I don't need you then. And so it really is just fine. I talk to CEOs. I really enjoy talking to political leaders. I enjoy talking to anybody that, so it does work out very well, and say, I'm busy for the next 4 months. If you want to come on the podcast, be a sponsor for an episode, and it works out quite well. I see who's real and who's not. I get maybe 5 requests a day for people to come on the podcast.
That's a good place to be. I wish I was in that position, Stu.
And then you get some bonehead like me showing up on your podcast, and it's like, holy smokes, what
No,
kind of animal did I
absolutely
get
not.
here? Holy smokes.
No, I do enjoy listening to yours. Actually, I do take quite a lot of information. Like I said to you before the podcast, America's a totally different beast when it comes to the energy sector. I always find it
I hope I don't
quite
get you
interesting.
deplatformed.
Well, I hope you don't too.
But I can't wait. I want to have you on my podcast because I want to hear what you're doing in the North Sea, and I want to hear what your thoughts are to my audience as well too.
Yeah, well, I look forward to that actually, Stu. To be honest, I've never been on one before, so that'll be a totally new thing for me. Like, especially if I'm on the other side of it.
I am not used to being a guest.
Yeah, well, no, you're doing a very good job here anyway. I've got, in terms of looking ahead, where do you see the next 10, 20 years going, especially for the likes of yourself and the rest of us, I guess? I mean, the States.
I thought I was going to retire and be a college professor, but the college kids of today are not the college kids that I wanted to teach. I can see myself being a podcast host until the day I die because I'm having way too much fun. I'm going to be spending more time working in my shop, welding, working in the garden, growing my own food, building my own microgrid, and fortifying my bunker. But you sit back and take a look. I love talking about energy and helping people try to understand that the more we get together and the more we work together, and let's end energy poverty for everyone. Let's take Africa, for example. I've had 2 great podcasts with NJ Inuk, who is the chairman of the African Energy Chamber.
Yeah.
Love that man. Absolutely love him. He is leading the charge for Africa. Africa first. We need to, instead of loaning high interest rate money to poor countries for wind and solar, when you got to build the grid, you got to do everything else. Why not put in money for a natural gas power plant when they're sitting on all that natural gas, and sell it and help them build a LNG export to pay for the entire grid system? That makes sense to me.
What happens if you end energy poverty?
Humanity can go to the stars. The world is our dream. Wars would end. Why do people fight wars? High energy costs, no food,
Yeah.
right?
No, 100%. What's one thing you say to people though who are working in this industry? What should they be paying more attention to right now?
Build a bunker. I am kidding. No, in the industry, like in the United States, the difference between the United States and the rest of the world, 50% of the United States oil comes from private companies. Those private companies get their money from people that invest and get a tax incentive. There's a difference between a subsidy and a tax incentive. So if the United States is now drilling more and producing more oil than any other country in the world, 50% of what we do is because of the tax incentives through private investorship. If you take a look at how the world has been taking advantage of oil through this whole process, China has been ruining countries' lives because of their use of oil and the bricks and roads methodology of then turning around and selling higher prices to countries. If the United States exported energy dominance through export as a service, and we got our oil companies teaching other countries how to do fracking, how to do capturing, how to put a natural gas plant together without any methane release or any of that kind of stuff. If we did that and we taught other countries how to do finances like the United States, every country could be the United States. That would end energy poverty.
What do you say though to people like obviously now we were importing LNG from the States. It's not cheap. How much? What would you say to someone who says that ultimately, America have kind of set the world up to be the energy distributor in that way by closing off the strait?
It did work out that way. And I'm not going to say that it was intentional, but I'm also going to say that the United States is changing the contractual obligations it's had in the past.
Say no more. I'll not go down that route then.
No. So with the new contractual obligations, I think those obligations are going to be freed, and it means that other countries will be able to be free as well.
One question: where's the biggest opportunities right now in the energy sector?
Oil and gas.
Still,
I'd have to say coal.
that's very apparent in India. India, I've read, are a way to go on a mad coal power plant spree. It's 300 and something gigawatts, if I remember right. They're a way to build it.
We now have 2 coal power plants in the United States coming online. We don't have enough workers. Here's where I think AI and data centers are going to be absolutely a game changer. In Texas, we have 220 gigawatts of storage of energy behind the meter applications. How much of that? It's got 180 gigawatts of nameplate capacity right now. They've got another 220 application in for next year. That's doubling the size of Texas ERCOT in a year. It took us 100 years to get here. It's not going to happen.
Do you see the reemergence of coal?
Yep.
Even obviously in the States, but I mean elsewhere as well.
Well, you've got people like Germany that blew them up, and since the poorest state of the United States is wealthier than the United Kingdom, I can talk like a Louisianan, and at least some of the people in the UK would understand me. We blowed it up real big, is the way they would say it in Louisiana. And if you're in Louisiana and you want to know how to tell if there's a gator in there, you walk down into the water and you put your hand in the water and you feel the water and everything else. And you put your hand down there again, you look, and if you feel the water, if the water's wet, there's a gator in there. So if you ask, what are we going to do? And it's going to be that, yes, the world is moving back to coal. Why? Because there's no choke points with coal. You can stockpile coal.
Yeah, it's because one of the things that I've questioned actually, and there never seems to be answers going out, is the emergence of data centers, AI, etc. everyone talks about building heaps of them, and there's going to be loads of new centers going up, and there's going to be loads of new jobs and stuff going up. I don't think I've ever seen one blueprint of how these AI centers are going to be powered, considering the amount of power they need is absolutely astronomical.
I've interviewed several CEOs of nuclear companies, and one that I interviewed 3 years ago was Thomas Jam, who is the founder and CEO of Copenhagen Atomics. Cool cat, love him. He is one good dude, and they're building thorium reactors. Interviewed Jay Yu, who is the founder of Nano Nuclear. They are actually building two nuclear power nuclear modular reactors right now. They're approved, one in Canada, one in the United States, but they're building at the same time that they've got them done. They are building not only reactors, they are building the plants next to them so that they can mass produce the reactors. That's going to be the game changer. Why do we have all these tankers going around the world using bunker fuel, and that's just the dirtiest, nastiest thing in the world? Why not nuclearize all the tankers?
Yeah, that's I had a guy on here actually who spent a lot of time around it, and he's adamant it's got to be nuclear. He says for baseload, for the emergence of this new era of AI and data center, and he's adamant it's nuclear. That's good. That's the way forward for it.
The problem is ramp up speed. Right now in the United States, there's only three main major companies building turbines: GE, Vernova, and two others. Hitachi, I believe, one of them. They're sold out for the next 5 years.
Oh no.
That's natural gas. So you've got a limitation of that. How are we going to do that? One of the things that we are looking at in the United States is putting in temporary turbines until you can. And the way to do that is the military jet boneyard, and then turn those bad dogs for about $50,000. You can take a turbine off of a jet and put it in I'm serious. I wrote the article on it, and I'm sitting there going, that's not a bad idea. If the water's wet, put a turbine on it. Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely brilliant.
Oh my. What's the proudest moment of your career, Stu?
Talking to you.
Aside from speaking to me.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I've thoroughly enjoyed everything that I do, so it's kind of hard to say. I'm not done yet, so I don't know if I can say that I have a proudest moment yet.
Well, that's fair enough. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, though, Stu. I will say that. It's
I warn you
like I
out.
said,
You're going to get back on your helicopter and go offshore and go, thank God I'm not talking to Stu Turley.
absolutely no chance. I'll just listen to another one of your shows, to be honest with you, and you'll be back in my ears again.
Well,
No,
thank you for having
it's
me
been an
on.
absolute pleasure, honestly.